This is the Crowdcrux Crowdfunding Podcast with Sal Briggman, where we cover everything you need to know to launch a successful crowdfunding campaign. We speak with proven entrepreneurs who've raised money from the crowd and want to teach you how to do the same. Stay tuned because we're about to reveal how to launch your dream project. With your host, Sal Briggman.
Before we get started with this podcast episode, I want to take a second to introduce you to my friends at Fulfillrite. If you need help shipping out your Kickstarter or Indiegogo perks or rewards, Fulfillrite is the absolute best company for you. I've been working with them for a while and I can vouch for their services. They make it dead simple and take all of the headache out of shipping out all of those boxes, all of those orders to your backers and your customers. If you want to check them out, go to fulfillrite.com at fulfillrite.com. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name is Salvador Briggman, and my goal with this show is to document what works when it comes to crowdfunding, what's happening behind the scenes, and to get into the nitty-gritty of launching and running a crowdfunding campaign, and try to do that with a lot of different voices on the show. You know, we have female entrepreneurs, we have male entrepreneurs, we have people that are launching in many different types of categories on Indiegogo, on Kickstarter, with euros, with dollars, from different places around the world. And I kind of want to give you like a sample of everything, because I think that whether you're trying to do a tabletop, whether you're trying to do a gadget or a gizmo or design product, it really inspires people to see individuals just like yourself who don't have necessarily a huge following, be able to build a following, be able to attract early adopter customers and fans, and actually get the funding for your project. How inspiring is that? That's incredible that is able to be, it's able to happen nowadays. Like, it's a window of opportunity in my opinion, that like online video, the internet, marketing, all these things have converged to be able to give you this platform where you can actually now raise money from the crowd. And that's my whole mission, man. My whole goal is to share with you how to do that. My whole goal is to inspire you and also to give you some of the hacks or the tricks that are happening behind the scenes that you might not see when you're just looking at a traditional crowdfunding campaign, and to ask guest questions that hopefully lead to some new findings and some new things that I can put into some of my content. So I've documented a lot of this on this podcast, but also if you want more of like a roadmap or a step-by-step guide, I have a Audible book out there called the Kickstarter Launch Formula. Also have a paperback version and a ebook version on Amazon. But the Kickstarter Launch Formula literally is, the title, it's the formula that I've discovered to get a project funded, to be able to successfully run one of these campaigns. And it not only works for Kickstarter, it also works for Indiegogo. It's really about a product launch and how to conduct that. And also how do you make sure that you not only hit your goal, but you also surpass it. So that book, if you're interested in getting an Audible version, it's at crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio, crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio, crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That link will take you to the Audible version. Or you can just search it up on Amazon or Audible or wherever it is you'd like to check it out. My goal with this show also is to kind of lend I think it's difficult when you're in the trenches to really find other people out there that you can empathize with and stories that can be rewarding or inspiring for you. So for today's guest, for example, he's a digital nomad. He's created a career out of making board games, making tabletop games. He's created a brand for himself, and he can work wherever he wants. He can go and work from Tokyo. He can work from London. He can have that freedom, if you will, that we've all been craving, I think, to be your own boss, to create cool stuff, and to be able to make a living at it. So he's been able to pull that off, and he not only did this with his first project, but over time he's been growing his following on Kickstarter, and that's led to larger and larger campaigns, more and more backers, and it's allowed him to use Kickstarter as a springboard for launching an online business that funds his lifestyle. And that has radically shifted his life and his ability to travel, his ability to do the things that he cares about. That's what it is, I think. It's great. I think it's very rewarding to be able to impact people and to change the world, to make a dent in the universe. But at the same time, it's also about like the lifestyle that you want to upgrade to. I think that most people, even if you're a creator, you are ambitious. It's not just about necessarily making money, but like you're ambitious in that you always want to be putting out cooler and cooler stuff, or you always want to be challenging yourself. That's what I mean by ambition. You crave to push yourself to your limit and to grow and to expand. And I think that if you resonate with that message, you will also like today's podcast episode. And you might also like some of the tips and advice that this creator shared specifically on the front of building an organic following, how to get people interested in your project, how to get your fans to spread the word for you so you don't have to do it yourself, and really having sort of like that organic movement behind what it is that you're trying to do online. I hope you like today's podcast episode. It's coming up right after this. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Today we have a multiple successful Kickstarter creator on the show, Jordan Draper, who has launched and created 7 campaigns. His most recent campaign, Import Export, the definitive edition, raised over $100,000, almost at $181,000, just over that, on Kickstarter. Tons of backers, more than 2,000 backers, a really killer campaign, great artwork, really interesting in general. I'll let him tell you a little bit more about it. Jordan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Do you think you can tell the listeners just a little bit about you? You know, I know you've been creating these projects a lot, just to give us a bite-sized background.
Sure. So I started out as a musician, actually, and then I ran an Etsy store for a number of years. Traveled around the world a bit and was playing board games through all of this. I guess to fast forward very quickly, I decided to try making a game on Kickstarter while I was still running my Etsy shop, which was selling like handmade jewelry and some other things. And it went okay. And I kept launching a few more. And so now I'm doing board games full time. I have my own publishing company. I do all the artwork, design, manufacturing with a partner, and then do all the selling and marketing and everything that's gone on top of that as running a business.
What year was your first campaign that you ran?
My very first campaign was in 2013. It was actually for a wallet that I designed, but it didn't fund, was unsuccessful. So I kind of turned off for a while and didn't come back until late 2015, I think.
And then you came back with Turn In Market.
Yeah, so actually there was a game called Poison Bottles that I did with someone else that was before that through a different alias, but that one funded at about $2,000. And then my first solo game and project that kind of launched into my company that I have now was started with Turn Market after that.
These have been growing like year after year, honestly. Like you just started it's kind of inspiring. Like you started with 98 backers that one, and then like 140, 1,000, 2,000. It's just been kind of going up.
Yeah, it's crazy how much of an audience you can grow on Kickstarter. I think you have to have something like special and delivered consistently for maybe some of the people to start trusting you a little bit more that aren't sure up front. Like there's early adopters who are going to jump in if they see something unique that you're doing. But Kickstarter is a great platform to slowly grow an audience. And they're usually pretty happy to interact with you and like get on a newsletter and stuff like this. So
yeah, when it comes to your company here, like, you were, like you said, you were a musician, and then you were kind of dabbling in wallets. You were selling some stuff on Etsy. It sounds to me like the tabletop thing is really kind of what took off for you. In terms of like your company now, can you just give us an idea like of how large it is, or how often you're producing games and such?
Yeah, so probably the most unique thing about my company is that it's just me. I do everything myself. I did start with a partner up front, one of my good friends, but he is a neuroscientist and he was a little busy with his other job. So we kind of had to split ways 3 or 4 years ago. So now I'm basically doing all the artwork design and I'm licensing some other things here and there, some other designs and artwork every once in a while, but probably like 90% of the games I'm doing myself. And I started out doing maybe 1 or 2 games a year, and then recently, I've really been ramping up. So to give some context, like over the past 3 years, I have 16 published games, and some of them, yeah, they're pretty crazy when I look back at it, because the things seem like they're moving really fast from the outside. But for me, I don't know if I'm like addicted to it or just really love doing it, but it just feels like a good fit. So I love spending a lot of time working on it. But sometimes
I was gonna say, but not all of them are on Kickstarter, right?
Yeah, not all of them are on Kickstarter. And I actually have designed some games that are published from other companies as well. Like one of them called Mega City is from a company called Hub Games, and that's going to be released worldwide. And from Asmodee, does a lot of the networking and distribution for that. So it'll be like in Barnes and Noble stores and some interesting places that I haven't had other games before. So I'm kind of branching out in that direction. But most of the games I'm publishing myself, and probably like half or more are from Kickstarter as well.
When it comes to this, you're kind of like a creative type, I would say, just from what you're describing. What's your least favorite part about preparing these different projects and launches and such?
Yeah, I just hate thinking about legal issues or like worrying about some of the implications of running a business and making sure everything is being filed correctly for taxes and whatever else. Like that's definitely my least favorite part. But I do like running a business, and I do like trying to grow and look at the numbers. I mean, I design heavy economic board games for the most part. It's kind of what I'm known for doing. So that aspect is enticing, but I would rather just be doing creative work and like growing a business without having to worry about some of the outside parts you have to worry about.
And the logistics. Like if you're launching any kind of online product launch, you're going to be shipping to people, around the world, and figuring all of that out is really annoying, I think, too.
Yeah, I actually like enjoy looking at the numbers, but the part that I really don't like is finding fulfillment partners that are consistent and actually can deliver and make everyone happy, which just never seems to happen. There's always something that goes wrong with fulfillment. So after you do it 3 or 4 or 5 times, you start realizing that, I think.
One of the biggest things I think that kind of ties together is like this really engaged community that you seem to have. Of people that are enthusiastic about what you're doing, and that's so freaking cool. I think that's kind of like the heart of success, honestly, is having that like multiple tiered community, and even within the community you have relationships, and these people are interacting with each other. And what are your thoughts on that aspect of community engagement and community building?
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, I would put that as the number one thing to be successful on Kickstarter, is to build a community. And you have to have something to build the community around as well. For me, I'm bringing like minimal, clean, modular design to tabletop games, which hadn't really existed for the most part before I started looking at different ways to approach games. So I have like games about just different materials, one only using metal or only using rubber or only using paper, for example. And like bringing some concepts in, people are really fascinated by that. And I think they can really relate to it as well. And I've tried to engage as actively as I can. So I answer every comment, every message. I have no unanswered emails, just to make sure that I am as open and transparent and like engaging with my community as I can be. And I think people react well to that, and they want to be engaged with someone who's running a small like personal brand as well.
Is the engagement mainly limited to like the comment section on Kickstarter, or do you have any other avenues where you build community?
I build community on Twitter. I did build my Instagram for a number of years, and I kind of use it more sparingly now because there's more ways to interact and talk with people on Twitter. But I also have a Facebook page, and my newsletter is a huge one. I only send out one a month, but I get replies to my newsletters pretty often, and people want to start conversations. And then as an extra thing, just for board games specifically, on Board Game Geek, it's basically just a forum that runs kind of like Reddit would or something for specific games. So a lot of people make really long posts and threads or reviews on there, and I go on there and comment pretty often and answer rules questions.
Okay. So pretty much just being present, it seems like, is a big part of this. And, having something that people rally around, are able to discuss also, but just caring, giving, I can't swear, I guess, but just caring,
Yeah. I mean, give everybody the time of day, and there's no reason to think that your time is worth more than engaging with a customer. I don't think if I had a community manager or something and I wanted to focus on just creative work, then maybe I would try to like separate those a little bit. But since I'm doing everything, I think that me being the face of the brand and being able to have anybody reach out and engage with anytime they want to is important.
There's also kind of like a strategic part, I think, to having a community where they can sort of become evangelists for what it is that you're doing online. Is there any ways that you kind of like kindle that? Like, you can create an affiliate program using Kickbooster or, encourage people to share. Are there any ways you kind of help or encourage people to spread the word like that?
Yeah, I mean, so there's like stretch goals on Kickstarter. My last project, I tried some experimental ones where I had people share the project a certain number of times or do some stuff that would engage on Facebook or whatever to help get some natural marketing. And I didn't spend any money on marketing in the last campaign to see how that would go, and it worked really well. And really, that was just an incentive to make the game a little bit better for them. And I think people get excited about that because it's a one-time thing, and then the game becomes a permanent thing after. And I've done some rewards through my newsletter and offered some discounts and stuff, but I'm actually trying to explore that a little bit more to see what people react to and doing some like A/B testing with that, because I'm not actually sure what the best methods are at this point.
Mm. Did you try any other things besides stretch goals with your other campaigns, like trying out, doing an ad on Board Game Geek or doing Facebook ads or anything like that?
Yeah, I've run Facebook ads, Board Game Geek ads. I've done KickTrack, and I'm probably forgetting like 3 or 4 others that I've used as well on past campaigns, which has been useful for getting like a really big end push. But I'm trying to shift into an ad-free, word of mouth, more of a strategy, because I think that there's just as much potential in that if you use that as a restriction to try to make it so that that's the only way that you're going to market, and you focus in on that. I would rather do that than spend a bunch of money on big ads, but so far it's transitioning okay. It's been working the last few campaigns, and I've kind of been weaning off of using Facebook ads.
Yeah, it's also one of those things where people are way more bought in, I think, when they sort of organically stumble across your project, or they really become invested emotionally in the community. Aside from, having something where it's interrupted and like having an ad put in front of them, like they could be interested, but they're a little bit just less bought in than like an organic follower, I think.
Yeah, totally. I would completely agree with that. And that kind of comes back to the whole idea of engaging with people. They want to be part of the product in a way. And if that just means being able to talk to somebody or like find it on their own and feel like it's something unique and special, then that is what it is.
Where do you draw your inspiration from? Not only with your marketing for your project, but also as like a creator yourself. Are you looking at up to any types of, artists on Kickstarter or any people in the community that you draw inspiration from?
Yeah, I love finding inspiration because I work alone and I'm nomadic. So I've been traveling for the past 5 or 6 years, living different places every like 3 months. I love going new places and like finding inspiration from cafes or stores or local artists. And in Japan, I spend about half my time in Tokyo. There's board game publishers there and artists there that are just doing incredible stuff that's just kind of going unnoticed. It's only really exposed inside of Japan itself. And I think they're like leaps ahead of where the rest of the world is in certain aspects. And I'm friends with a lot of them, and I feel like they're always pushing the boundaries, and I'm kind of trying to follow their footsteps, to be honest.
When you're coming up with ideas for these new projects, is it mainly based on like feedback, you'd say, from your existing backers, or you're drawing mainly from like the inspiration you see when you're out there in the world? How do you come up with like an idea for this new one that you just ran?
Yeah, so my inspiration is basically pulled directly from things that I want to have existing in the world. So when I design a game, I design from an idea of what I would want, and I don't worry about a target audience or what anybody else would maybe want from it. And then I get it done pretty quickly and start playtesting and make sure that like it's approachable and everything actually is engaging for everyone else after that. So my first initial spark is just kind of what I'm inspired by. But I do listen to feedback and like have on my campaigns, I have a lot of suggestions and things, and those get implemented into the games as well. Mm-hmm. This last one was actually a reprint from my first big campaign for Import Export, which was kind of like my breakthrough game. And so it's been out of print for about 1.5 years, and people have been asking for a reprint. So I thought I would revamp it and make like a really deluxe edition with metal pieces and new artwork and everything.
I had to interrupt this podcast episode because I want to introduce you to my friends at The Gadget Flow. Their product discovery platform reaches 22 million people per month. They've helped more than 5,000 crowdfunding campaigns thus far, and they have a social media following of more than 700,000 followers. If you want to gain access to their marketplace and list your own product, you can go to thegadgetflow.com/submit and list your project today. Why do you think that the import-export game just connected so much better than the Jutaku game that you ran?
So this is an interesting comparison actually, because Jutaku I made like a very small version of that as the first one that came out, and then it got re-released again as part of my Tokyo series, which was the biggest campaign that I had, but I put 3 games up at once, and you can kind of like mix and match those, and Jutaku became Tokyo Jutaku. And I'd say they're both like pretty successful now, but it's hard to draw a line for what makes games more successful than others, but there is a market on Kickstarter right now that's looking for heavier board games that are either like economic or storytelling and dungeon crawling. I don't want to say that they're tropes, but there's a market looking for a certain type of game, and those are usually heavier, more in-depth games with more strategy and like really nice artwork. So I would play that into some of the reason why people like my more popular ones.
Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of interesting too that like while that campaign was not as successful by today's standards, you were able to incorporate that into a new launch and like using what you'd already learned and using what you'd already created in a positive way in the future. It's kind of cool how you're like rolling that one into the other one,
Yeah. It was great. I loved that I get to reprint some of my games too, because it's very rare in the board game industry. Like 95% of games never get reprinted. So if you make it to a reprint, you've got something good.
So I kind of want to get into like just maybe 2 or 3 things that you would like to pass on to other creators in the audience that are just now thinking about launching a Kickstarter campaign. You mentioned email list or email newsletter being one thing that really worked well with you. What are some things they should be aware of going into their first project?
Yeah, especially with the first one. You want to have a really strong release if you can in the first like couple of days. So if that just means rallying together your family and friends and making sure that they know when you're going to launch, so that if they're going to support you, they're going to do it right away. And I would say try to get as many other people as you can to at least know what you're doing, and then maybe get a shout out from a few other influencers if you can manage that. Because the beginning of the campaign is important to let everybody else know on Kickstarter that you have a chance of funding, or like you are going to fund, and that brings up your searchability so people can find your project, and then you can get some just organic traffic coming from Kickstarter itself, which is very useful.
Mm-hmm. So basically, obviously plan for the launch, and having people give you feedback, play test the game, these different things. Do you think there's anything in the way of like structuring your reward tiers or pricing the game accurately? Like those are the questions that I think people always get hung up on, is like, should I offer something really cheap? How do I even, bundle this together? Did you have anything you learned about that?
Yeah, I've learned a lot about that, especially if it comes to how many items you're going to put into your campaign. I would say always lean toward less. I've had like 7 to 9 reward tiers on projects before, and I would say just keep it as low as you can. Maybe between 1 and 5 is a good range. And I mean, people are going to want something that you're probably passionate about. So I would say stick to your vision, and if you need to price it to make it a little more expensive because of that, then I think that's fine. And you want to get a lot of wiggle room, especially on your first project. So whatever it costs to manufacture your game, you probably want to mark that up 5 or 6x and make sure you have some extra room for shipping, because shipping will always cost more than you expect.
When it comes to the video, like, I think there's a lot of conflicting advice out there, and it also varies by category from category to category. So like a lot of people think that they need to be in the Kickstarter video, but you've demonstrated pretty successfully even with this last project that, you don't necessarily have to be in the video. And, you don't necessarily need the super high production quality video to get funding. What are your thoughts on that? And also in general, like the tips given for the video?
Yeah, I mean, I think having a video is important. That's just the first thing that you should be thinking about. But once you're past that, I mean, videos can be fun or silly, or they can be more serious if you want to, but I don't think that you need to be in the video, and I don't think that it needs to cover anything specific because somebody told you that it did. I would put more of your personality into it and think about what's the best way that at least it can get some information across about the thing that you're doing. And that doesn't have to be super in depth. It can just be like a short intro that makes people want to go to the page more. Get creative with it. Like the Kickstarter's been out for a while now and people have seen every kind of video. So if you do something fresh, they'll probably be more likely to look at your page.
And yours is like a little bit over 30 seconds long, It's pretty snappy. It's really just having text come up on the screens, interesting background. You're not in the video really there, and that kind of is surprising. Like it's very simple to the point. Is interesting, and then people can go and like look at the rest of the campaign for more info.
Yep, I wanted to try something new with this one to see how it would do, and it did better than almost any of my other videos. I had a really high play percentage finish. It was like 65 or 70%, which is pretty crazy for Kickstarter. And yeah, I would say just get interesting and creative and don't worry about what people tell you to, but make sure that it's at least kind of a nice quality and has something to do with the product that makes people want to come look more.
I do think it also though is because you've done this before that people had a bit of a different expectation. If you were coming out with a whole new game, they might want to see more like B-roll and those kinds of things. But it seems like a lot of these people were already supportive of your first one. I'm not sure if that's the case, but do you think that plays into it?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of it's hard to say exactly how many people would be caring more or less based on coming from my audience that I've already built. But I would say that if you can't put too much technical information in the video, no matter what, and I've tried that before, I've tried to explain everything about the game for the most part. And not many people finish the video just because it gets too long. Like once you go past 2-3 minutes, people kind of lose interest. I think it's better to almost, I don't like using the word clickbait, but it's almost better to just come up with something short and sweet that's like really enticing. And I mean, if you have an audience already, they'll probably be even more receptive to it, but I think you can get away with it without having a big audience as well.
Of this entire journey, like, being able to create board games for a living is pretty dope. Like that's a pretty dope job,
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite part of that?
I think I really just love playing games. I mean, that's why I started doing it in the first place. And the fact that I get to sit down with friends and like try new ideas, and I'm almost designing through experimentation, and I get to see how people react to it and try really weird things and be creative every day. I mean, the biggest thing is being creative every day, but I also get the freedom to be nomadic and work from anywhere that I want to, and I get to make stuff with my hands. There's lots of pluses.
Yeah, that digital nomad life.
It's real.
Well, when I was kind of looking through your projects as well, I think that you kind of bring like a really unique flavor to games in that it's almost like a cultural kind of, slant or perspective that's like infused in it. And it's like this really unique, like everything from the artwork to the way the campaign looks, the design of it. I imagine also the packaging and these different things, like it's all very nicely synced up to this one, unified kind of message and image behind it, like a theme almost, you'd say. And I think that's really something that you did well with this project. And I urge everyone to go and check it out, and we can get a link at the end of the show for you guys to see that. Do you have any other things that are coming up in the future that the audience should know about?
Yeah, I'm working on a couple projects right now. So I have been working on my Tokyo series, which is just a whole bunch of games about the city of Tokyo, and they're about weird, almost mundane things in the culture that I just really love, like vending machines or laundromats or whatever. And so I have another campaign launching in sometime between January and March. I'm not sure when I'll launch yet. That will be for the next 3. One's about capsule hotels, which are like these tiny little pod hotels that you can go stay in.
I've heard about those, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm doing a nice economic game about that, where you get to draw out and subdivide land and stuff. And then I'm doing another game about umbrella lockers, which are lockers just for umbrellas that they only have in Japan. So really interesting stuff culturally that you wouldn't really find anywhere else. So you can look out for that, the next Tokyo series. And then I'm working on a game called Paper, which is just showcasing paper. I'm working in London right now on it, and we're going to have a bunch of people take paper waste and we're going to mulch it and then form it into a carton to make the 2-piece telescoping box and all the pieces, and they'll have magnetic dust in them, and you'll use a magnet to manipulate and play the game by moving paper around. So that's a pretty out there project. And you can learn about all of this on my website, jordandraper.com.
Very cool. What is the reception like in Japan for like crowdfunding and Kickstarter, those types of campaigns?
So they have some of their own platforms called like Campfire and a few others. They're becoming a lot more receptive to Kickstarter. And right now, like the board game scene there is really cool because there's so many independent publishers, like a few thousand, and they just hand make their own games, like 50 or 100 as a little side project. And they bring them all and sell them at this trade show called Tokyo Game Show. And it's a unique market, and I think that they are opening up more to Kickstarter, but they're not used to having like these big AAA titles or expensive games. They're used to having little tiny ones that are handmade. I think there's like a fusion going on right now where they're seeing how they feel about it, but they're supporting it for the most part.
In terms of board games and tabletops as a whole, I think we've seen like a major renaissance, honestly, in the last few years here, because I think for an independent tabletop board game creator to even exist nowadays, like that's so different than 10 years ago. It's just phenomenal to me, the power that you can have. And you can, like you have, build an audience on Kickstarter, and you can build a small company out of it, and you can connect with people that care about what you're making. And that just seems like such a unique opportunity nowadays that more and more people are also starting tabletops. And I would never like imagine that. Because a lot of the stuff, historically has been through sort of larger companies that you have to partner with to get into the market.
Yeah, I think we're at a really unique place technologically and just culturally on a global scale, where there's so many opportunities to do so many different things. Like you could probably take any idea and run with it. But it is very lucky that the board games have gone through a bit of a boom over the past 5 to 10 years. And now is a pretty good time to be making games. But the opportunities that the internet has brought up and allowed for just running and being able to sell and get awareness, that's kind of the big things where we've been able to cut out distributors and other parts of that puzzle that were basically like a gatekeeping door you couldn't get in before. Yeah.
Totally. Awesome. Well, if you'd like to check out his recent campaign, it's Import/Export, the definitive edition on Kickstarter. And also you can go to jordandraper.com. You can learn more about some of the games that he's created, as well as some of the upcoming projects. Jordan, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we'll have to have you back.
Cool. Thanks, Salvador. I'd be happy to come back.
Let me tell you about our latest sponsor, SendPro Online by Pitney Bowes. Shipping can be complex. Things can get really confusing really fast. With SendPro Online, it's easy to save time and money no matter what you send, from letters and packages to overnights and flats. You can easily compare USPS, UPS, and FedEx in an all-in-one online tool. You can print shipping labels and stamps directly from your printer. You can even track all of your shipments and get email notifications when they've arrived. SendPro Online is only $14.99 a month, and listeners can get a free 30-day trial when you visit pb.com/crowdcrux. That's pb.com/crowdcrux. Experience the convenience of SendPro Online for yourself when you sign up for a free 30-day trial. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name is Salvador Briggman. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you resonated with it, take a second to leave a rating and review on iTunes. That would mean a lot to me. And also, you can go and check out some of the other episodes that I got out there. If you're interested, again, the link for my book, The Kickstarter Launch Formula, is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That link will take you to Audible, crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. You can pick up a 30-day free trial of Audible if you want to, and you'll also get a copy of the Kickstarter Launch Formula. And you can also search up that same title on Amazon if you want a paperback version or you want an ebook version. We got all the versions out there online on the interwebs. The other thing I wanted to say is that I've been kind of experimenting with putting together some apparel. So one of the messages that really stood out to me among many of the guests that I've interviewed is the ability to have more freedom in your life. more freedom when it comes to running your own business, being able to work on the creative projects that you want, being able to do what it is you want to do every single day, work from wherever you want, be a digital nomad, whatever freedom means to you. I think it's a really important message. It's one of the bonuses or one of the benefits of doing your own business. So that message really resonated with me, and I kind of wanted to embody that. Every time you wake up in the morning, or you're looking in the mirror, or you're walking down the street, I think it's important to surround yourself with messages that are positive and uplifting to you, and to be reminded of these things in your life. So I've been kind of experimenting with some merchandise. So you want to check out some of the snapback hats that I got, and also some of the cool, tank tops and stuff like that embody the message of freedom. This is a life of freedom, and really living this. You can check out some of the designs that I got. Let me know what you think. You can go to crowdcrux.com/merch, and you can give me some feedback there on that. I'm really, I'm starting to wear more of my own merch, honestly, just for myself, because I really like embodying that message. But I figured if you're interested, I can also open that up to you. So you can go to crowdcrux.com/merch. You can check it out. Let me know what you think. And I want to get more into also, designing more inspiring, cool stuff in the future that can help remind you of why it is you're doing this, why it is you're working hard, long hours, working in the trenches, and really who this is for at the end of the day. Freedom is obviously one component of that, but there are a lot more. So I'm looking to incorporate some more messages like this into my brand, I think, in the future. Thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast, and I will see you next time.